More detail then on the UK government's expected announcement that later today whether it's going to impose mandatory hotel quarantine for people arriving in the UK. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said the government is definitely looking at the possibility. There is rising concerns about new strains of COVID-19 in other countries and how best to prevent them spreading across the UK. However, Airlines UK and the Airport Operators Association have warned that the impact of further measures would be catastrophic. There's also concern about overcrowding at hotel airports. For example, it's understood there are only about 10,000 rooms close to Heathrow, which is about the same number of people who arrive at that airport per day, or arrive in the country, should I say, per day, not at that airport. Well, let's talk this through with Simon Calder, who is a travel expert, a regular here on BBC World News, as you know. Nice to see you, Simon. So what are you hearing? What do we think might be UK residents who presumably have a home in the UK? The reason for this, is this purely to police people and stop them from getting out and about when they're supposed to be in quarantine?
Well, there's all...
OK, well, we shall learn later what the government decides. Simon, thank you very much for getting up so early to talk to us about that. There's more details on that story on our website as well. Do take a look. Now, let's have a look at some other business. Now let's talk about Janet Yellen, because she has been confirmed, as expected, to be the first ever female US Treasury Secretary. That took place in a Senate vote. Yellen, who headed the US Central Bank from 2014 to 2018, won support from members of the Senate Finance Committee. She'll be responsible for guiding the Biden administration's economic response to the pandemic. Well, let's talk this through with Janet Mui, who's the investment director at Bruin Dolphin. Janet, nice to see you. She has a very big job on her hands, but she has huge amounts of experience. From your perspective, how important is gender in this story? She is the first female US Treasury Secretary, but she is the right person for the job, regardless of gender. To talk to you. Thanks for being on the programme. And yes, Janet Yellen, an absolute trailblazer. So let's look at how markets are faring and what's happening on those financial markets right now. You can see at the top, that's Australia's All Ordinaries. Actually, Australia's closed today for a national holiday. The FTSE will be opening at 8 o'clock London time. And you can see that in Japan, we're up by almost 0.7%. In the US on Wall Street the night before, excuse me, it was a mixed picture, actually, at the end of the day. The Nasdaq weighted index, the tech heavy index, up by 0.7%. There is a little bit of nervousness about the $1.9 trillion stimulus package for the US economy, whether it will actually get the go-ahead in terms of what on Capitol Hill, but we'll keep you up to date on that. Now, the pandemic has caused an unprecedented hit to the global economy last year, destroying the equivalent of 225 million full-time jobs. That's according to the United Nations. The crisis caused a near 9% drop in working hours. That's 4 times more compared to the 2008 financial crisis. Let's get more on this from Mariko Oy. She's in our bureau in Singapore. Mariko, give us more detail. With BBC News still to come. More on that story in a moment, but first let's look at some other stories here in the UK. A lawyer for the bereaved families of the Manchester Arena attack has claimed that nearly 4 years after the bombing, there has been no urgency from government to attempt to improve security at people filing a self-assessment tax return online won't be fined if they miss the 31st of January deadline. They are being encouraged to submit by then. So that's a look at some of the top stories in the UK. Of course, if you're watching us on BBC One, you can join the breakfast team in around about 15 minutes' time. That programme starts then. This is BBC News. Let's remind you of the top stories this hour for the... Now, the International Chamber of Shipping, along with many international companies that include BP, Rio Tinto and Shell, are amongst more than 200 signatories calling for governments to make it easier for staff on cargo ships to be able to return to their home countries at the end of their contracts. There are thought to be more than 200,000 seafarers currently stuck at sea because COVID travel restrictions means they just can't go home. Well, let's discuss this with Guy Platten, who is from the International Chamber of Shipping. Guy, thanks for being on the programme. Just talk us through the situation. What impact is all this having on the shipping of supplies, some of which is vital medical supplies? Governments, that's what is required, isn't it? An international response to this. It's no good if one government recognises them as key workers, but others don't. Coverage of problems we've had in the UK, especially in the run up to Christmas, in terms of getting goods across borders, etc., etc. In your industry, how has it been navigating this last 12 months of shipping? Now, India, back to India. It is one of the US's strongest allies in Asia. So how does corporate India see that relationship developing under the new Biden presidency? Nikhil Inamdar spoke to Indian billionaire and pharmaceutical entrepreneur Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. She's vice chair at the US-India Business Council. He began by asking her whether the council will lobby for America to revoke its ban on H-1B work visas. That's Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw there, Vice Chair of the US-India Business Council. Now, let's focus on the beautiful game. The absence of paying fans for much of the season has meant a significant drop in revenues for football clubs. According to Deloitte Sports Business Group, the 20 biggest clubs in the world are likely to have missed out on over $2.4 billion in revenues by the end of the current season. So can clubs sustain these type of losses? Well, let's talk this through with Dan Jones, who's a partner in the sports business group Deloitte that put all these statistics together. Good to see you again, Dan. So just talk us through the fallout. Who are going to be the big losers then? What you've just said, is the return of fans crucial to football clubs' survival, or will they survive anyway?
I think
this group at Deloitte. And that is all from me. Thank you so much for watching. You're now up to date on all the latest business stories and news. If you're watching us in the UK, you'll join the breakfast team in a few minutes' time. If you're watching us around the world, I'll be back. I will see you very soon. Stay tuned to BBC News.